A better way to learn English. If you pick up this book, then you want to speak English for a while. Maybe you haven't taken classes. You probably need English to improve your career. Maybe you want to travel internationally or study abroad. You know that English is the key to international business and international travel. So let me ask you something. Do you feel nervous or shy when you try to speak English? Do you still struggle to understand what someone is saying to you despite years of study? Are you embarrassed about your pronunciation or worry you speak too slowly? Are you frustrated that despite all the time you invest in learning English, you still can't speak it? Despite your goal, is it difficult for you to actually use English in your job, travel, or studies? Do you sometimes feel that you never master spoken English? If you answer yes to any of the questions, you are not alone. In fact, you fairly typical of English students feel this way. Most other English learners are stressed and frustrated about their speaking ability. Some feel completely hopeless and fear they never be able to speak English powerfully, not because they are bad at language, but because, like you, they've been taught using the wrong method. The good thing is that it doesn't have to be like this. There is nothing wrong with you. You can learn to speak English naturally and with ease. You can use English effectively in your job, travel, and study. You can feel relaxed and confident every time you speak English. In fact, as long as I'm English teacher, I have thousands of students all over the world become fluent and powerful English speakers. How did I do this? I did it using a teaching method I developed called effortless English. Effortless English enables you to learn English naturally and automatically, the way children learn before they enter school. Too often English class get so focused on tests, textbook, grade, and level. Students forget why they are there in the first place. They forget about the real world goal of a more successful career and exciting international travel. With Effort English, you never lost sight of the fact that the multiple goals of learning English. A language is communication. Instead, you learn to speak English more quickly and with more precision. Effortless. I understand if you skeptical, particularly if you've been trying to learn English the traditional way. You put in the half memorizing vocabulary list, doing grammar drill, reading boring textbook. How? You are thinking, can speaking English possibly be effortless? Believe me, I feel your pain. Back when I started teaching 15 years ago, my students were all excited to begin conversation in English, and I was excited to help them. At the time, I taught in the usual way. I used textbook and I focused on teaching grammar. I thought this was the best way to teach, and none of my students complained. I still remember one particularly intelligent student of mine from Venezuela named Gladys. Gladys was determined to speak English well. Talk about effort. Gladys attended every one of my class. She always sat in the center of the front row. I can still picture her eager and smiling face. She took detailed notes. She listened to every word I said. She also studied at home. Every day, Gladys studied her English textbook for 4 hours or more. She also tried to learn 15 new vocabulary words by memorizing word lists. Gladys was my star student and I too was sure she would succeed. 6 months later, however, she still could barely speak English. Her speech was hesitant and unnatural. She constantly made grammar mistakes with even the simplest sentence. Her pronunciation was difficult to understand. She still sought in Spanish and tried to translate to and from English when she spoke. Worst of all, Gladys felt nervous every time she tried to speak English. Speaking English was a painful experience for her. Gladys was extremely frustrated. After so much effort, she had barely improved. After teacher, I too was frustrated. I was sure Gladys would improve quickly and couldn't understand why she had not. I followed all the traditional teaching methods. I used the standard textbook and the standard classroom activity. Gladys was intelligent, disciplined, and consistent, and yet her English speaking barely improved sadly. I realized that Gladys wasn't the only one who had not improved her English. Her classmates also had barely improved. It was frustrating and I felt like a complete failure as a teacher. But when I asked my colleagues for help, it turned out they had the same problem. Every few of their students were improved at the point, I realized something was wrong. Something is wrong with standard method for teaching English. The worst part for me was that everyone accepted this situation as normal. The other teachers don't seem to be concerned about their students' lack of progress. All the teachers were using the same method and getting the same poor result. In most parts of the world, students study English in school for years. Yet, the vast majority of them never learn to speak English well. After years of study, they still have trouble with real English conversations. They still feel nervous and shy about speaking. A few years after my experience with Gladys, I got a job as English teaching assistant in Japan. I was excited and eager to help these young students learn my language. I still remember my first day. I was sitting at the front of the class next to the main teacher, who was Japanese. As the students came into the room, they saw me and giggled nervously. They sat down and continued to silently glare up at me. They were sweet and curious. Then the class started. The main teacher wrote an English sentence on the board. I don't remember the exact sentence, but it was something like, "The little girl goes to school." The teacher pointed to the sentence and began to talk in Japan. The students all grabbed their notebook and began writing every word each. Next, the teacher circled the word "goes." She pointed at the word and continued speaking in Japan. She talked and talked and talked in Japan. The students wrote quickly, filling their notebook with information. Finally, the teacher drew a line from the word "goes" to the word "girl," and then she talked more and more and on in Japan. This continued for the sentence class. The teacher drew lines, circle and square. She used different colored chalk and she continued speaking Japan. I was totally confused. I am native speaker of English and I was sitting in the beginning English class. Yeah, I could not understand anything in the class. I was thinking to myself, what could this teacher possibly be talking about so much? It's just one sentence, yet the teacher spent an entire hour and line explaining and dissecting that one simple sentence. Finally, at the end of the class, the teacher asked me to read the sentence aloud. For pronunciation, I read the sentence after a couple of times, and that was the only real English input the student got the day. Sadly, the same pattern repeats every day. Day by day, I watch the student exhausted and curiously disappear. They become bored, they become stressed and confused. Every day, they wrote pages of notes, mostly in Japan. Every day, the teacher talked and talked and talked, mostly in Japan. I couldn't understand why an English class was being taught mostly in Japan. During the average class, the students were listening to Japan 9% of the time or more. They heard every little English. No wonder they never learned to speak. No wonder they were frustrated and confused. Honestly, it broke my heart to watch the school crush the students' natural love of learning. It was terrible to watch them grow bored, frustrated, and stressed. 6 months later, none of the students could speak to me at all, not even the simplest conversation. This kind of situation is repeated in English class all over the world. My experience with Claudia and in Japan convinced me that traditional English language education is broken. I know there has to be a better way to help my students speak English than what we were doing. So I began the search for a better way. I developed books about English teaching. I constantly try out new methods. In my class, I read, research, study. I travel and taught English in other parts of the world. What surprised me was how little the actual research support traditional teaching methods. At Englishmp4 University of Southern California, linguist Stephen Kanchen note, we acquire language when we understand what people tell us and what we read. There is no need for deliberate memory. If most of us know instinctively that the best way to learn English was naturally, I wonder why were so many teachers and students still choosing to use natural and effective and old method of teaching. Eventually, I went back to school and got a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other language. Along the way, I did more research and discovered the incredible new method that would become the basis for an effortless English program. I also did my own informal research. I searched for excellent English speakers who had learned the language as an adult. Whenever I found such a person, I interviewed them over time. I noted patterns. Most of these successful speakers were independent students who mastered spoken English outside of school. Most of them use similar methods for every exam. Method supported by my master research must avoid the traditional method used in most schools. I changed my teaching, and when I used this new strategy in the classes, my students improved quickly. I couldn't believe it. They finally learned to speak easily and powerfully, and even better, they were enjoying themselves after. And even better, they were enjoying themselves after years of searching and experimentation. I have finally found methods that work effectively in English today. Over the years, I continue to test and adapt this method and develop the effortless English system. I recognize the program to include 7 essential rules for learning English which have led countless students to fluency.
To build on the success of my class, I created audio courses and began offering them online of English students around the world. My audio lessons are currently bestseller in 25 countries. In addition, I found the Effortless English Club to create an international English listening community where students can communicate with other members. I want to create an environment that encourage confidence and success with English because so many learners struggle with nervous shyness, frustration, and fear with speaking. In fact, for many people, these negative emotions are both part of speaking English. In our effortless English club, students are able to interact on our forum and speak with each other online. It's an extremely positive and encouraging community where everyone is free to play with English, make mistakes, and communicate without fear. In my opinion, we have the best member in the world. Every one of our members is focused on not only their own success but also helping other members achieve success too. The result is a supportive family of learner and international leader. This book is another resource for students looking to speak English powerfully and fluently. It is designed to guide you on the road to fluency. To speak your journey to confident, powerful, effortless speaking in this book, you will learn how to reprogram your negative emotion about English, develop confidence when speaking, and follow a powerful and effective road to fluency. You will also learn how to use English improve your career and achieve the success you want.